Good afternoon. Welcome to Hobby Hi-Fi. Guess what we're doing today? Looking at a pair of woofers out of a pair of bookshelf speakers. Again, one of my favorite brands, Paradigm. These are Titans version 2. I had the originals when they first came out. A little different orientation. Similar box and size, but through the years I think, what are they up to now? Like a version 8. So they've stuck with this little 6.5. I think it actually measures closer to a 6-inch woofer, and a dome tweeter. Basic two-way. I don't know exactly how to describe the crossover. I'll have to leave that to my buddy Roger, Speaker Pro. But probably a simple 6 dB crossover, I'm assuming, but maybe not. But Paradigm is a Canadian company, and they seem to just continue to make products, again, at a good price point, but also something that's that sounds quite nice. And originally the tweeter that they used was a Vifa, I believe it's D19, which is a 3/4-inch soft dome that always struck my ear. And they used it in quite a few different designs. Of course, Vifa is one of your more famous tweeter manufacturers. I believe they were originally out of Denmark. I don't know if they still are. They probably are. But Paradigm decided to take things into their own hands, and maybe the supply was low on the Vifa tweeters that they preferred, or maybe they just decided that they could make their own tweeter, and so they started doing, I believe in this version here, it's kind of hard to tell, but I think this is what they went to, a ceramic composite type of a tweeter, and I think it's still a good one, and it's pretty crispy. And when these are running properly, they're some of my favorite sounding little speakers. If I was on an island and I had to choose one pair of speakers, this might be it. They're not heavy, they're not big, they're not they're pretty good looking. And they just have a nice blend to them, and they put out quite a bit of bass, so they can be a little boomy if you don't set them up right. But best placement for these is about 4 feet off the ground, whatever your ear height, your listening, wherever your your most common listening chair or seat or position, whether it's sitting or standing. Just keep those tweeters about ear level, and you'll really hear some nice sounds out of these Paradigm Titans. So what happens is that they used a foam surround on these woofers, and over about 10 years, they will start to just evaporate. And so today I decided to turn these on and listen, and I'm always curious of a set that I don't know if it's been refoamed and refoamed properly, that I'm curious, always kind of cautious, I guess, to know that I'm not going to overdrive the woofer, because it's so common for these to rot out that anything that's over 10 years old really needs to be watched and listened to very critically at first before you give it too much more juice. So today, happened to hear that same thing in a particular song, and when you're doing these types of tests on these things, it's always nice to pick some material that you're familiar with, and something that has, maybe, especially when it comes to woofers, has a nice little thump to it. And so I was listening to Styx this morning, and oh mama, foomp, foomp, foomp. That was the one. That particular frequency said to me, hey, there's something going on. Now, once you get this out, it's a little difficult, since they put some reason they put this little crossover right where that fourth screw up in the corner, right underneath that sucker. I don't know why they did that, but anyway, it's a little difficult to get out. You could have a long screwdriver and get the right angle on it. Maybe a little pressure here or there. But as I looked into the cabinet, and this was face down, I could see a little hole starting right about here somewhere. And so I decided that I would just show you what I do, and it's kind of hard to do this since my phone is what I'm using today to take this video, and I only have one hand since I'm holding this. But I guess I won't get into too much detail. You get the gist. But what happens over time is this foam will just pretty much turn into goo. I mean, you can see that this is getting to the point where it's like it's just really just eroded. You know, this is not going to hold your cone in place properly. And so anyway, you go online and you find yourself a kit. And the kit that I used was from a guy on eBay, and I forget his name now. I think it's Looney Tunes. And he'll give you a kit with some glue in it and the proper size foam surround that was made special for these. Now, like I said, I think these will measure a 6-inch. So you may have a rough time. You may have a rough time finding a generic foam replacement that will work on these. Now, I did find some 6-inch rubber surrounds from China, of all places. And I had them sent with a couple other things to try out and see if this foam if that foam would even be possible to use. Because I don't know if you can see this, but what they call this particular type of foam is filleted. And you can see that there's a slight slope that almost kind of gradually comes down at about a 45-degree. Typically, you'll have a little bit of a ridge similar to this outside surround roll, but you'll also have that on the inside. But this one here, what they do is they sort of blend that, and they call it a filleted foam. And so I wanted to get as close to original as I could, and so that's what we have. We have a filleted foam here, and I've done one of these already. I thought I might get away with not doing the second one, and so take it from me, if you've got a pair of speakers and you think that one of the foams is sounding strange, or you hear some bad vibrations, stop, cut the power, take it apart, get it out, take a look at it, and you might be able to find a foam. Generic foams you might be able to find for $5 or $10. These particular specialized foams run for $20. So they are a little more pricey, but once you get them done, you should have a good another 10 to 15 years of enjoyment out of these. And Boston Acoustics was also another one that made a lot of little foam surrounded speakers that rotted out. HD series, I think even the A series used, a lot of them used foam back in the day anyway. Advent, almost everybody did. And so you're going to have issues like this, but it's not too much of a problem. A lot of times, people will walk through a detailed installation procedure, and I'm not going to do that today. But these are measured just about perfectly. So what I feel confident doing is when I get this completely cleaned off, you want to remove all of this, and I use an X-Acto knife, as you saw before, with a straight chisel type of head on it, and I will go all the way around the cone, and I will scrape all this until I feel I won't put too much pressure on it, and but get as much of this stuff that sort of pills up here off, and get it down as close as you can. And then you're going to be putting another coat of glue down on top of it, so as long as you feel like it's a secure, relatively clean surface, you don't have to worry about it too much. That glue will hold. And so like I said, a lot of times with a bigger driver, people will recommend that you shim this, and because what you need is a proper piston movement directly, straight out. You don't want any rubbing, or what's going to happen is that your coil inside is going to hit, And so this needs to be done pretty much perfectly, but on this size, I feel confident just aligning the front edge of the cone here first perfectly. When I get a bead of glue, get it all clean, get a bead of glue all the way around, come down with the new foam, and just eyeball that. I feel confident enough to know that if that foam is perfectly centered around that original rim, that's going to be a good way to start. Once I get that done perfectly and to my liking, I'll probably apply a little bit of heat, put it near the wood stove or something, get that glue to make sure that it really adheres, and then do the outside ring. And when you do that, I like to do the same thing. You can just pretty much follow right around, and those foams fit so perfectly that you'll know that if it's off center, because it'll be 1 millimeter here or the other way or the other, and you'll be able to see. But this other one just matched up perfectly. So there's little room for error here, in my opinion. So I'm not going to take to shimming this coil. People include little pieces of paper that they can push this up all the way around at the same height, and make sure that cone is centered, because this cone will still move when we're doing this. And this becomes a little more important the larger the woofer that you're dealing with. This is when smaller ones are a little bit easier to work with. You start having an 8, 10 inch, 12 inch woofer, you're probably going to need to do a shim. Or one thing I like to do, which is a nice little trick that my buddy Roger told me, take a 9-volt battery, and I've got some leads coming for this, because I always just sort of tape the leads, a couple of short piece of speaker wire, positive and negative, and you just wire this right up to your positive and negative terminals on your driver. And what'll happen is this will pop out or in, depending on which. I think that was in, so you turn it the other way. Boom. I think this is going out. There it is. And that will push that cone out, and so it stays straight on its spider while you do that, while you foam that. It'll give itself a little bit of pressure, but it'll kind of guarantee that cone stays centered a little bit, as long as you're not rough with it. And once you get that that inside cone to foam connection straight, then you can kind of let that battery off. But I use that as a little trick to make sure that if I'm not positive that things are going to go easily, to keep that cone in a good centered position while we get that cone, that new foam on there. And so go around it, be gentle, be meticulous, take your time, go all the way around. Make sure you kind of have to dab it. I was using the head of a pencil eraser, and just kind of tapping. Once I get that new foam centered, just tap it along all the way around, and then you can do the same thing with the outside edge. Once you get that foam down on there and you get your glue, just go around and make sure that and keep going around and around until you see a spot that maybe looks like it might be not perfectly aligned. And then while that glue is wet, you still have the ability to make an adjustment if you need to. And as you go, you're getting more comfortable with the fact that it's perfectly centered, and you could apply a little bit more pressure. You see some glue coming out of the seams, and then finally, bada boom, you're done. Give it plenty of time to adhere. Sometimes 8 hours is enough. Sometimes I think it's better to almost go overnight. And then you've got yourself a new pair of woofers here. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens when I finally get both of these refoamed and get them in there, and play a 30 hertz test tone CD, which I have, which will tell me whether or not I've got any rubbing going on, or anything is vibrating or not sounding just so. And of course, most likely a better way to do this these days is to have some sort of a computer program that will, and a microphone. And I haven't quite figured out which way to go with this, but I'm very curious to have a way to measure distortion. And I've been told by a wise old manufacturer of a high-end speaker manufacturer that do not even attempt to refoam our speakers. Just buy a new one, because we still offer them. It might be a couple $100 a whack, but he says the chances of people, he says, and he's been in the business a long time, and he said, you know what, it's never going to be like the original. So he's confident that the modern manufacturing processes of some of these high-end speaker manufacturers is better than what a guy like me can do, and he may be right on that. And I always wanted to test that out by getting some sort of a distortion analyzer and a computer program and a decent mic. I think you would probably need, and just get some kind of reading whether I can measure distortion. And there's other measurements that can be done with some of these modern machines, but I haven't got into that deep into the measurement of these particular drivers. And at some point I think I will, because it is intriguing to see what computers can do for us today, and may be able to hear and analyze particular frequencies better than my ear certainly can. So I'll be continuing on with that. Sorry for the long video here. Hopefully I did turn my video settings down to to a point where this video is not going to take 2 hours to upload. Sorry for my large carbon footprint. Thank you for watching today. And here we are, first week of February 2022. And today we talked about the Paradigm Titan version 2. Wonderful set of speakers. Don't be afraid to dig in, pull the drivers out, get a kit, take some time, set a few hours at least. Quiet, no dogs jumping and kids and people bothering you. Go to a quiet place and sit down and work with some of these things, and you'll get a sense of achievement when it's done, that you have revived a nice older driver that is quite heavy. I'm going to say 7 pounds. I mean, it's only as big as my hand, but you can see the way that they build these is no joke. And I think that this is what they call a stamped steel. No, this is a, what do they call this? Well, there's a frame. I can't quite remember, but there is a way to describe this particular style of manufacturing on the chassis itself. And it's rugged, and it's well made, and these are definitely worth saving. They sound fantastic once they're reformed. So thank you for watching today, and I hope that this was of some help to some people, and party on.